Special address by none other than Mr. Sumit Gupta, Managing Director and Senior Partner Lead, Asia, Climate and Sustainability Practice, Boston Consulting Group. In fact, this is a time for us to also witness a very important launch of the report as well. So, Sumit, if I could please invite you on stage and let's welcome him with a huge round of applause, everyone.
Good morning, everyone. It's great to see a full crowd over here for such a great cause. The world today is clearly at an inflection point. Climate action is no longer just a priority, it's an ultimate necessity. For the first time in history, we are now seeing the impact of climate change actually play out in our everyday lives. I'm not sure how many of you are from Bombay, but the rains that are happening recently, we don't know the reasons, but at least in my lifespan, being born and brought up in Bombay, this clearly seems to be a big anomaly. In order to avoid these harmful effects of climate change, we need to cut global emissions by 43% if we want to reach the 1.5 degrees that was stated in the Paris Agreement. Or, at least get to 26% to get to a 2-degree mark as well. If we don't do this, the global economic damages coming out from this could hit more than $1 trillion by 2050. And annual economic growth could get impacted by anywhere between half a percentage point to a percentage point, depending on the period that you look at. There is nothing more urgent than taking an action towards making this green transition happen. This is not easy, but it is an ultimate urgent necessity. However, it's not just a challenge alone. It represents a unique opportunity being faced first time by human history to actually create businesses that can emerge out of this need and create the impact that we are looking for. At the core of this transition, we see, green businesses and green opportunities emerge across 3 broad areas: green energy transition, sustainable infrastructure, equipment and industrial ecosystem development, and finally, circularity. Each of these value drivers present not just environmental benefits, but also massive economic opportunities for people who will actually take advantage of this. Just a few examples, global e-methanol demand is expected to hit 20 million tons over the next 8 to 10 years. We will need around 800 gigawatts of electrolyzer capacity by 2050. And in India, waste recycling alone could become more than a $400 billion opportunity by 2040. These are just some examples that I am stating. However, the transition to this path will not be easy. The launch of these new businesses cannot stand alone. It will require the full ecosystem to come in, whether it's in form of policy and regulations, whether it's form of availability of green finance, and of course, technology innovation coming towards to the center stage as well. Our experience shows that to do this all together will require the full ecosystem of government, private players, environmental activists, academicians, and of course, research and technologists to actually put this to action. In conclusion, the future of business in India and globally is unmistakably green. The time to act is now. And as leaders, entrepreneurs, policymakers, and advisors, we must ensure that organizations are not just reacting to these changes, but they are actively shaping the future. On this note, I am excited to announce the launch of BCG's latest report in collaboration with ET. It's named Green Growth Accelerators, Unlocking New Opportunities to Drive Sustainable Growth. This report deep dives into green business landscape and highlights practical strategies to capture the immense opportunity across the green economy value chain. But before I get into the details, let me ask the MC to invite on stage and to help us launch the report together with other dignitaries as well.
Well, firstly, thank you very much, Sumit. And to unveil the report along with Mr. Sumit Gupta. If I could also please invite Mr. Abhishek Bhatia, Managing Director and Partner, Boston Consulting Group. May I further please invite Mr. Siddharth Jain, Managing Director and Partner, Boston Consulting Group. And if I could also please humbly invite our two special guests, our leaders for the summit. If I could please invite Dr. Abdullah Belhaif Al Noemi and Mr. Harsh Mariwala as well to please join in for the unveiling of the report. We managed to gather some data points from Mr. Sumit Gupta, and now it's time for us to unveil the report at the summit. So let's have the reports on the stage, please. And can we have a huge round of applause, ladies and gentlemen, as we unveil the report at the 6th edition of the SDG Summit. And with that, we'll further get to deep dive into the report. We'll also get to understand a little more about it. So with that, Sumit, over to you.
There is an urgent need for green businesses to get launched. As I said, global emissions need to be cut by 26% to get to the 2 degrees and 43% to get to the 1.5 degrees. This is just underscoring the need for businesses to act and lead the transition. Current policies actually put us in track only to get to the 3.9 degrees, which is not the place that we would want to leave our next generation with. And to get to the 1.5 degree goal, not just the world, but we as India also need to act. We are responsible for 7% of the global emission, and we hence have a very, very pivotal role in this shift. The cost of climate inaction is astronomically high. Different estimates, I'm sure, you would have heard very different numbers, but all of these are extremely large. Our estimates suggest that, the impact of economic damages resulting out of climate inaction could range anywhere between 1.2 trillion by the year 2050. Every fraction of degree in temperature rise compounds these costs, and especially for emerging markets like India, where recovery from each 1 degree increase could take several years to actually recover the economic disadvantage that it causes. However, on the positive side, we are actually seeing a lot of action come in. There is at the COP28, we had this entire mobilization of funds. There was more than $85 billion of funds that was announced, and new initiatives like the Altera Fund and several others, which are looking to mobilize more than $250 billion by 2030. And they've already mobilized $30 billion. I think is showing that meaningfully people are moving in that direction. The journey towards sustainable growth begins with a fundamental shift on the green energy side. We see these 3 levers very, very active to actually push the green growth agenda moving forward. The first one being green energy transition. This is the cornerstone of the transition in my mind, which is pretty much required to ensure we reduce the emissions and actually reimagine how the industries will use power going forward. This requires also working on the second pillar, which is developing the sustainable infrastructure and the industrial ecosystem and the equipments that are required to actually enable that transition. And then finally, circularity, and Harsh also spoke about that earlier, I think is very, very critical to ensure that whatever we generate, whatever waste gets emitted, it actually becomes, very, very useful ingredient to actually fuel the next stage of business that we are looking at. Opportunities across all of these value chains have very, very attractive markets. The market is potential is tremendous. If I just take an example of SAF, uh, there is a commitment from multiple airlines that more than 5% of the jet fuel demand will come from SAF, not long time in future, but by 2030. Even in India, Indigo has committed to get to 1% SAF by 2027, and I'm sure the other airlines will also follow suit. And this appears that it's a golden time with SAF right now commanding significant premium over the jet fuel, the aviation jet fuel that is there. Now, how can businesses think about unlocking this opportunity? Businesses can think about unlocking opportunities across all of these three pillars. Early movers in sustainability will be recognized not just with new businesses, but what we are seeing in the market with significant valuation premiums as well. Companies that are actively shaping energy transition towards renewable energy, green innovations, are actually attracting funding and investment from multiple different players. We are seeing this actually play out in real life as well. New age startups like Stegra have actually gone ahead and raised humongous capital in both debt financing and also gotten in touch with several marquee clients across the globe. Now, this green transition is gaining momentum. We are seeing very active use of innovative financing. I'll not go through all the examples; they are in the report, which is downloadable. But back over here in India alone, if I actually look at it, we've seen like this key blended finance facility, which is being set up by government of Goa along with World Bank, along with several other institutions like NABARD, SIDBI, PFC, which is helping Goa achieve its climate goal. This is just one example, but there are many more innovations that are happening in this entire space of climate finance, which is about how do you ensure that the initial gaps, the technology risk are all overcome. At the same time, businesses are provided with the right impetus to actually realize growth out of some of this as well. And then lastly, I think acting on sustainability is not just to be done for the climate. I think it really brings a genuine, sustainable, competitive advantage to all our businesses. Companies that are integrating sustainability into their core operations are benefiting from lower operational costs. We typically have this thumb rule of 30-30-40, which is the first 30% that you invest on climate technology actually recovers you more money than what you have invested. The next 30 typically creates a break even. And then the last 40 is where you really need to think about technology innovations and look at where the cost of funding and the cost of capital will come. And some of these technologies are yet to be still proven fully as well. But at least the first 60% is clearly a no-brainer. And if we do this, then there is lower operational cost, improved financing access, and of course, the talent side of it. Our new age talent wants to work not just in good opportunities, but good green opportunities. And that's why this becomes not just an option, but actually an imperative for all our businesses to follow. Finally, I would say that, I would end with the statement that I started with. The transition to green is not just an option, it is an urgent necessity. It is significantly advantageous. While it is a challenge, it is bigger opportunity than ever before. The businesses which can capitalize on this can actually significantly gain out of it. And I hope that, the numbers that which I have called out are just a starting point, and what gets realizes in the years to come is multifold of what we are talking today. Thank you so much for listening to me today. Bye.